In order to conduct this meeting, we have to do a few administrative motions first. So first we have to verify that each member participating remotely and the remote participant's voice is clear and audible at an appropriate volume for the meeting room and conforming to their location, as well as why they are conforming to our remote policy. So, Board Member Aubrey, can you please state for the record your location and why you're participating remotely?
This is Board Member Michelle Aubry. I am calling in from my home in Alexandria, Virginia. I am participating remotely because of a medical condition, and I appreciate the approval of my request to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. All right, do I hear a motion that this member's voice may be adequately heard and that their remote participation comports with our remote participation policy?
Motion. Voices heard.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Klinsky. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Zellman. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion carries. Next, the ARB needs to determine how long each member of the public will be able to speak during the public comment periods. The public will be allowed to comment after consent agenda items and after each action item as the standard ARB practice. I move that each member of the public will have 3 minutes to speak. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Abstentions? Motion carries. All right. With that out of the way, we now go into a few more board and staff items. Notification that this meeting is being recorded and that the recording will be posted online in 10 days. Is that correct, Daniel?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other administrative things?
Not at the top.
All right, excellent. All right, that'll out of the way. We have to start our meetings with a reading of statement and purpose, and Mr. Burns has offered to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Statement of purpose and intent of historic overlay districts. Historic overlay districts are created for the purpose of promoting the general welfare, education, economic prosperity, and recreational pleasure of the public through the perpetuation of those general areas or individual structures and premises that have been officially designated by the Board of Supervisors as having historical, cultural, architectural, or archaeological significance. Regulations within such districts are intended to protect against destruction of or encroachment upon such areas, structures, and premises, to encourage uses which will lead to their continuance, conservation, and improvement in a manner appropriate to the preservation of the cultural, social, economic, political, architectural, or archaeological heritage of the county, to prevent creation of environmental influences adverse to such purposes, and to assure that new structures and uses within such districts will be in keeping with the character to be preserved and enhanced.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. All right, a few more housekeeping items. Once the agenda is approved, that is the order in which items will be heard. Additionally, items can be added to the agenda at the discretion of the chair. Applicants that are here for follow-up presentations that have been here for a workshop or a prior application, we request that you keep your presentation to roughly about 3 to 4 minutes. Folks who are here for a new presentation, keep your presentation to roughly about 8 minutes. That does not mean that you only get 8 minutes for your time with the board. It just means the presentation should be kept relatively short if you've been here in the past. We'll then go around and ask more questions during those presentations. In addition to that, I would ask that folks that step up to the podium try to be as loud as you can. You see we're trying to use mics to help with audio. We have one member participating remotely, so making sure everyone can hear. If you can speak as loudly as you can, try to use the mic as best as possible. With that, we go on to the approval of the agenda. I would look for a motion to approve the agenda. All right, motion made by Ms. Murray and second. Second by Ms. Orr. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the motion carries. All right. With that, we move into our agenda. We have introduction and recognition of guests. Daniel, are there any? Well, Daniel, I feel like an introduction is in order, so why don't we have you introduce yourself briefly. We have new ARB staff. Floor is yours.
Yes, hi everyone, Daniel White, I'm the new ARB administrator. I think this is week 6 in the role. So it's nice to put a face to everyone's name, and I'm looking forward to meeting with you.
All right, thanks so much, Daniel. Are there any other guests we need to recognize?
Not that I'm aware of.
All right, with that in mind, we move on next to special announcement from the chair. So this is a little less, I guess, as I would want it to be, but since October of 2009, our esteemed member, Ms. Aubrey, has served on the Architecture Review Board, and she has informed us that this is going to be her last month on the board and that she'll be stepping down. We were going to use today to kind of recognize and really honor her time serving on the board. We had a small token of appreciation that Daniel's going to present a trowel inscribed with your time of service at the ARB and recognizing your commitment as an archaeologist to this ARB's purposes and duties. So thank you, Michelle, so much.
Well, thank you. I am hoping I can maybe appear at the Monday meeting in person. My husband took his PCR test and he was negative, and I'm going to take mine and we'll see if I'm negative.
All right,
So I could show up on Monday. It is possible.
I'm hopeful that on Monday we can possibly give you that in person, but.
But thank you so much. I appreciate your kind words.
Thank you, Michelle. And if any other board members wish to say anything, obviously I leave the floor open to any of you. Again, Michelle, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, hearing nothing from our other board members, they've been moved to tears. We will now move on with our agenda. Our first item on the agenda are consent calendar action items. We have 2 items on the consent calendar. 3 items on the consent calendar. All 3 items are up for consent vote. However, though, I do have to ask if there is any member of the public that wishes to comment on any of the items presented to the consent calendar. Sure, Mr. Kalinsky, I'll take you up on that. So reading those items out, we have item 1, ARB 23 LOR 07, which is the extension of the Fairfax County Park Authority approval for their archaeological museum collection storage facility. This was previously approved by the ARB and is coming back for reapproval. The next one is ARB 23 MTV 01. This is the original Mount Vernon High School renovation adapted for use. Again, this one was taken up by the ARB previously back in 2022. And that approval is going to expire, and so they are seeking reapproval on that with a special exemption. And the third one is a set of solar panels located at ARB 23 SUL 03 in the Sully Historic Overlay District. So again, if there's any member of the public that wishes to comment on any of those. Not seeing any, and unless there is a member of the board that wishes to bring one of those up for discussion. Mr. Burns.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I don't object to us approving the 23 SUL 03, the solar panel one, but I do note that this was an inadequate application. There was no plat, there were no photographs. We just have a little bit of description saying it, you can't see it. But I don't think that that's adequate for our purposes. However, if that is indeed the case, then no one will ever see it. I would not object to it being on the consent calendar.
Looks like it is. I went back on Circle Street, and it seems that there's a line of trees between the subdivision and Center Boulevard.
And this one, for clarification, falls into coming before us due to it being in the way of a right-of-way.
It's a parcel that's immediately adjacent to a major thoroughfare. So it's nowhere near the actual Sully historic site. It's a non-historic residential infill in a non-historic neighborhood, and it's shielded from the thoroughfare by vegetation. We can't administratively approve it because it's adjacent to a major thoroughfare. That's the only reason that it was brought as a consent item. But
I don't object to any of the facts that Michelle and you stated, excuse me, sorry, that you stated, but it's not in the record, is my point.
Well, I can't pull up my package right now to look at it, but that would have been the question of it. I think if there aren't any objections to us proving it, I think that's the issue, is the consent package should have had all the materials in it. But for some reason, I can't pull up my prior application package. John, if you're okay with that, then
all
right.
I'm okay with that, but I just
Want to note it for the record?
wanted noted for the record
Gotcha.
that we need to review complete applications, even on the consent calendar.
Understood. All right, I would look for a motion.
Happy to make a motion to approve all three items on the consent calendar as submitted.
All right, there's a motion to approve all three items as submitted. Do I have a second?
Is that enough?
Denise, Daniel, is that enough?
Yeah,
Would you prefer we get the full throat of the
it would be
motion?
better, particularly giving the complexity of the three and the differences in the three different consent, it would be better if.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm gonna
Sorry.
ask them, we'll take them one at a time then. So if you want to do one, Steve, we'll.
Okay, so for consent item motion, number one, ARB 23-LOR07, extension of Fairfax County Park Authority Archaeology Museum Collection Storage Facility. Mr. Chairman, I move that ARB approve consent item ARB 23-LOR-07 for an extension of the previous ARB approval, ARB 21-LOR-01, proposal for the renovation of a building W35 adjacent to the Workhouse Arts Center for 1 year as submitted at today's meeting. On review of the materials, the proposal found to meet the requirements of the memorandum of agreement for the Laurel Hill eligible district and zoning ordinance 3101 historic overlay districts.
Do we have a second?
I'll
by-
second it, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we already got a second already. They beat you to it, Michelle, but we'll get you on one of these. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that motion carries. And before we take the next motion, John, I'm looking at it and I have the plans and the district map. So what did you not get?
There are no photographs.
The photographs, okay. I want to make sure I understood the items. Okay. All right, sorry, Mr. Kalinsky.
So for the second item, ARB 23-MTV-01, original Mount Vernon High School renovation and adaptive reuse. Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve consent item ARB 23-MTV-01 for the reaffirmation of the previous ARB recommendation of approval, ARB 21-MTV-01, renovation plan for original Mount Vernon High School as submitted at today's meeting. Upon review of the materials and proposals found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 4102.1.h, standards for alternative use of historic buildings.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Ms. Orr. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion carries. All right, Mr. Kalinsky, you want to go for the 3?
Okay, ARB 23-SUL-03, 3501 Armfield Drive solar panels. Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve consent item ARB 23-SUL-03 located at 3501 Armfield Farm Drive for the proposed installation of a solar panel system as submitted today at today's meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposals found to meet requirements of zoning ordinance 3101 historic overlay districts.
All right, do we have a second?
Thank you, Michelle. Would you like to second that, Michelle?
I shall second it. Yes, I will. Thank you.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the motion carries. All right. Thank you all. Anyone who was here for a consent action item, Daniel will get with you following the meeting regarding any unnecessary approvals. All right, that takes us on to our items for action. The first one on our items for action list is ARB 23 HOL 32, 1600 Paul Springs Road, court lights at the HPTC. This is located at 1600 Paul Springs Road. Applicant is requesting ARB review and recommendation of a special permit amendment to allow site modifications, specifically the previously installed sport court lighting. Applicant has installed 4 court lights along pickleball courts, converted from the original use as tennis courts, and they have replaced 2 floodlights at the entrance. It's Rebecca Bostic representing applications. Bostic?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes. Mr. Burns?
I need to read my disclosure.
Yes. Mr. Burns, read your disclosure.
I, John Burns, under Virginia Code Section 2.2-3112B1 and 2.2-3115H, declare my personal interest in transactions brought before the Architectural Review Board involving the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District, and specifically state the following for the September 14, 2023 ARB meeting. 1. Action items ARB 23-HOL-31, 7527 Elba Road Edition. ARB 23-HOL-32, 1600 Paul Springs Road, Holland Hills Pickle Tennis Court lights. ARB 23-HOL-33, 1931 Martha's Road Edition. And ARB 23-HOL-35, 7318 Ripon Road Edition involve the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. The nature of my personal interest is that I own and reside in a home that is valued at over $5,000 and is located in the Holland Hills HOD. 3, I am a member of a group of 3 or more persons who are members of which are affected by the transaction. 4, I am able to participate in the transactions fairly, objectively, and in the public interest. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you very much, John. And I'll just remind members that this is one that we're going to be recommending approval on. It's not the same as our approval ones. And again, obviously, Ms. Boswick, the floor is yours, and I'll let you know when you're getting close to your minutes.
Okay. Picture on your screen is our pickleball and tennis club, all the way at the end of the parking lot. We started talking about lights last October. And at that time, I went to the president of the Civic Association and said, do I need to go before the design review? They consulted and decided no, design review wasn't necessary, which is why you probably haven't seen me until now. We, through a series of odd events, got the lights up before our planning special permit amendment got completed. So the pictures I show you are lights in place. And hopefully that will make everything easier because you're not guessing what we're going to do. The plat shows you at the very bottom, I kind of yellow circled where there's lights. There's 4 pole lights, 2 on each side of the court. And the 2 that face the parking lot are just some small floodlights that we replaced existing old fixtures that no longer worked. Next screen. So you can see our 2 pole lights. Those are the 2 that face Fort Hunt Road. Can you see them hidden in the trees? Next picture. And those are a little bit more close up. So you can see they're pole lights. They're 30 feet tall. They're black. They are specifically court lights designed to light the courts without a lot of spillage behind them, around them, lighting up the whole neighborhood. These light our courts, and they do a pretty nice job. We had them installed in February, which was kind of nice because it gave us a chance to turn them on when there aren't leaves on all the trees. And we had one neighbor complain. So the picture on the right, you'll see they've got some flat screens in front of them. Those are to limit the light from the head of the fixture from going across, spreading out more into the neighbors where they could see them. And that made our neighbor happy. Next picture. These are the 2 lights on the other side. These ones face are on the side with Ripon Road. Next picture. And you can see on this one, well, you can't really see, it's hard to see, but there's screens on the back side of the light heads on this one because it was the Ripon Road side that had the complaints. Off, lights off, and those are the lights coming on last night. a closer up picture. These are the ones with the screen on the front. You can see how from a direct view, the screens really do a nice job blocking the direct view of the heads of the lights, but it still lets the light spread down onto the courts. Next picture. These are the floodlights, and the far left, you can see the old light fixture that used to be there that no longer worked. And we took that one, well, two of them on two different poles. We took that down and we replaced them with little modern LED floodlights. And that's what we've done. Any questions?
All right, 3 minutes, excellent record time set. So I would look to board members for questions. Obviously, this is, we've been in this situation before where we've had something that has gone through other review processes and it's slipped through. I think the only comment I make is fortunately this is light fixtures and not the entire structure. So, but.
Public comment?
Oh, you're right, Michelle. Not Michelle. Please. Can you tell I didn't get enough sleep last night? All right, sorry. I apologize. Is there any member of the public that wishes to comment on this item? The one time I don't do it is going to be the one time that there will be. All right, so I would turn to the board. Any members that have comments or questions on this item?
I want to thank you for a beautiful presentation that came to us ahead of time. I mean, it was very clear. Nice stuff.
Thank you.
Okay.
I just have one real comment. Not against lights or anything like that. I just have a question. Is the noise an issue in your neighborhood from the path?
We have not had any neighbors complain to us about noise.
So that seems like a big issue.
And when we got started, I put a letter to all of our surrounding neighbors, like 5 this way, 5 that way, plus everybody that faced the courts, and gave them my name, my number. Nobody has called and complained.
Thank you.
Any other members? Yeah, the only comment I would make, and I made this to Denise and Daniel, I talked to GPD staff at length about this is something that the area's been combating all over the place, is the process for approvals for certain things are not happening in the order they should. I think in this situation, it's much less of a concern compared to other situations we've gotten ourselves into. So I don't have any other further comments. So if there's a member that has a motion they'd like to make, I would more than willingly entertain one.
I'm happy to make a motion. Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB recommend approval for action item ARB 23 HOL 32, located at 1600 Fall Spring Road, tax map 093401 0001A in Holland Hills Historic Overlay District for the proposed special permit amendment for site modifications, including previously installed lighting as submitted and presented at the September 14, 2023 ARB meeting. Upon review, the materials and proposals found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101 Historic Overlay Districts.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Burns. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next item is ARB 23 HOL 35, 7318 Ripon Road, 2-story addition. This one is, an applicant is proposing a 2-story addition. This is Carlos Leipina. I apologize if I didn't get that correct, is representing the application.
It's actually Scott Sterl.
Oh, Scott Sterl, never mind.
Carlos does the submission, so. This should be familiar because we were here with the July workshop, and we did finally get our determination from zoning that we could not do what we had originally planned and extend the existing plan vertically that had a variance approved for 1956. So we have gone to the scheme B, which was to totally remove that anything that was within the beyond 15-foot setback, and and then extend to the rear so we can maintain approximately the same square footage that we had before. Yeah, so that's the existing plan, showing the removal of the the pieces on the end. And then the proposed basement on the left, that may be the foundation, the basement on the right-hand side, or the lower level, and then the upper level should be, yeah, on this sheet. And as we discussed before, I did a little cantilever to break up that left side a little bit, and the roof would extend over that. Yeah, elevations, okay. So the lower right is the elevation from Ripon, and then to the left of that is the side of that. And this has also been through the DRC, and they suggested the two Goodman windows, the tall, the large panel on top and the small awning on the bottom. On the left side, the one's in the closet, the other one is in the back of the bedroom area. And I did consider the comment about sloping the rear extension back toward the house, but I just felt that it might cause too much, since we already had the butterfly coming in there. It might be difficult to drain that roof. That's a section. This is the flat, which is difficult to see, obviously, at that scale. But everything on the left side would meet the 15-foot setback.
All right. Just within time. Nice. All right, I will ask if there's any member of the public that wishes to comment on this item. Not hearing any. I will look to board members for comments, questions to the applicant. I'll fill some dead air for folks. I normally try to go for some. And so I appreciate you clarifying at least that one question about the roof in the back, because that was kind of one of my questions was, based on the last workshop, what other changes had you considered? And what the DRC might have asked when you brought it back to them. It's interesting to have a window in one's closet. But
well, I like, actually, I try to put windows in the closet, so.
I'm not against it.
Yeah. It is on the side, and
I will say personally, I think this has improved significantly since it was here with the initial workshop. So that's my only thought on it. John, I saw you getting ready to touch the buzzer, so I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, my only comment would be that this has been an evolution in design. Both comments from us and from the county administration. And because of that, you've arrived at a solution that I think will be to everyone's liking.
Mm-hmm.
So there's really not a whole lot of comment that we can make at this point because we've been commenting for months. Thank you for the changes.
Sure.
All right, unless there are any other comments, I would look for a motion. Mr. Burns.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve action item ARB 23-HOL-35, located at 7318 Ripon Road, Alexandria, tax map 093-05, lot 8, in the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District for the proposed two-story residential addition as submitted and presented at the September 14, 2023 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101, historic overlay districts.
Do we have a second? Second. Oh, second this one, Ms. Swan. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank
And
you.
again, I echo Mr. Burns' comments. I appreciate you coming back and forth to us. All right, we're at Holland Hills kind of night, so item number 3, ARB 23 HOL 33 1931 Marcus Road Dining Room and Bathroom Addition. This is another proposal in this historic Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. The applicant is proposing to add approximately a 13 by 23 foot addition with dining room, bathroom. The space will connect an existing studio to the main house. Proposal is approximately, they proposed approximately 4 by 21 foot shed will also be constructed. Mr. Mark Shapiro represents the application.
Hello.
Sir, floor is yours.
Good. Well, I've got a series of photographs, and the first one is an aerial view from the Fairfax government website. And that bluish triangle is pointing to our house. So you can see approximately where the addition is. And then there'll be 3 views of the property from Martha's Road. And you'll see it's fairly obscured. That one's from the northwest, as it says, and then the next one will be looking down the driveway. So those are the views from Martha's Road. And now you're coming down the driveway and you can see the greenish umbrella in front of the existing addition, which is what we want to extrude to create a dining room and an additional bathroom. And it will also connect the studio that's behind the umbrella with the house itself. Currently, they're not connected internally. And the deck represents the exact size of the addition, with the exception of it would come 3 feet towards the camera from the deck. It would include one more of the Holland Hills window modules. And it would be, like I say, an extrusion of the same roof line. And this is another view of it. Again, the deck is where the addition will go, and it'll be 3 feet wider to the right. And that's a view from what would be, well, from the deck to the north, to the neighbor's property. And that's a view again from the deck back towards the driveway, which we came in on an earlier photo. And then the next 2 pages will be the drawings. These are the elevations. And that's the floor plan. And that's the extent of my presentation.
All right. I'm going to ask if there's any member of the public who wishes to comment on this item. Seeing as the crowd is dwindling, I feel like we only have applicants. That being said, not seeing any member of the public, so I would turn it over to our members for comments and or questions on this application. Ms. Murray, thank you.
I guess I'll be the cranky one. I don't think this application is complete. I don't think there's sufficient elevations. I have trouble figuring out what he's doing with the design professionals are happy approving this. I can go along, but I don't think this is complete. That's my comment.
All right, any other members with comments?
Because the drawings don't show the context and the addition to the house.
And Mr. Shapiro, you're more than welcome to provide feedback as well, but.
Well, I'm not clear on what the objection is. I have elevations of every view.
You should have an elevation that includes the entire building, so we can see how the addition fits with.
That is the entire building.
On all 4 sides.
All of the 3 sides that the addition is on, I could show an elevation from the back, but you wouldn't be able to see the addition. It's an original Holland Hills house from the backside. So, excuse me, you know, as I say, the topmost is the entire house with the addition, looking at it from the north, roughly. And then from the east is the one in the middle, and that shows the side of the addition. The existing studio, the extruded addition is beyond it. It's the exact same shape. And then that's shown in the bottommost photograph looking to the east.
Okay, I apologize. I found your drawings difficult to read. I'm not a design professional.
Ms. Swan.
Yes, Yeah, I do have a similar concern as well when reading through the document provided. It took me a while to parcel out which part is existing and which part is addition. On top of that, even though some of the existing you're not touching, we like to see the whole plan and whole elevation so we can understand the design as a whole. Are they coherent or not? So like, for example, like some of the elevation was kind of cut off, and we like to see the whole building.
I appreciate that, but the three drawings, I thought I quite clearly denoted which was the original building and which was the addition.
It take some puzzle out, yes. Eventually I did figure that out.
So then,
Well, some people using like a kind of gray out to further distinguish them, that help us quite a bit. So this is a workshop.
No, this is an item for application.
Oh, well, I would expect a more complete document than what we see today.
So to add on to, I think what both our two members are getting at is when usually we have something coming for application, it's going to have a set of plans that we would expect would be going for construction.
these are prepared for construction.
I am not an architect, but I would question that this could go through the permit process. Daniel, you said that here.
We did reach out to the permitting department, and they said that in Virginia, for residential construction, plans do not need to be prepared by a design professional, licensed architect, or engineer, as long as the construction follows the prescriptive code and the property is not in a problem soil.
Okay.
So that's our clarification.
I would add to it that I'm a Class A builder in the state of Virginia. These are drawings sufficient to build the building from. They're no different than the building, the drawings that were done for the original edition, which was approved. These have gone through the DRC. They've been approved.
Caveats on that, we're not the DRC. And then,
Well,
so
no,
their
that's
opinion,
fine.
I appreciate that they may or may not approve something, but that's irrelevant to us.
Well, that's fine. I'm just making my case, you know. I struggle to imagine what I would add to these drawings to make them acceptable.
Go ahead, Mr. Galinsky.
The one thing that I don't see on here that will be required as part of a permit set would be a foundation plan.
Framing plans.
And, well, framing plan also. There are, my question looking at these drawings is what appears to be a deck on the left side of your floor plans. If you can scroll.
Right, it's an existing deck.
It's just, it's not denoted. That's all. The elevations, the materials aren't called out. Usually, typically they are on a set of plans that are going in. You know, I can read graphically some of the things you're doing, but there's also when I'm an architect, and when I said submit a set of plans, if I don't have the materials denoted or I'm missing rooms that don't have labels, I get rejected. So those are the things I'm seeing here that seem to be deficient for an application. But the big thing is structural and foundational aren't as part of what you presented here.
But again, I struggle to understand what we're doing here. I've never been before the ARB, but it's my understanding the ARB is for the purposes of reviewing the design, not for reviewing the.
Well, I don't disagree with you that that's our purpose, but I think, and correct me, Mr. Zellman, you're supposed to be submitting what your actual construction documents to the county. Your permit drawings need to be submitted. Only because my understanding in the past that design drawings have been submitted, and then when they go to construction documents and get submitted, there's significant enough changes that takes it away from the design intent. So the board requires that you're submitting your construction documents.
These are my construction documents.
Okay, and
You know,
I'm not trying to argue the fact with you, but
right.
you asked, are these deficient? From my experience as an architect, I would have foundation plans and framing plans as part of this, and any sort of wall sections to give the details. I mean, those are all the critical elements that help us judge if it's in fact consistent with the architecture in Holland Mills.
Oh, well, you know, again, oh, excuse me.
No, I was just gonna say, I'm a lawyer, I'm not an architect, and so
Okay.
I have a different view of these things sometimes, so it can be a helpful perspective sometimes and sometimes not, but my issue is gonna be with what's not here, and what I'm used to seeing is, I think we've had some issues in the past, which I think is what Mr. Kalinsky was trying to get to at the end of his comments, where we approve one thing and then it's something different than what we approve. And I have an appreciation for the, what you're doing from a scale perspective and where it is on the house and what it's gonna be. I don't feel like I have as good of an idea of what materials you're using, what they're gonna look like. I don't think we have as much of that, and Mr. Kalinsky and Ms. Orr and others are smarter about the foundation plan and the framing plan. That's not my area, but there's some things that, having been on this board for a number of years now, that I'm used to seeing in these applications that I don't see. That'd be my comment.
Well, I really want to return to the fact that I think this is supposed to be a review of the design. And I think I've drawn very clearly what it's going to look like from the outside. And furthermore, I've denoted what the siding is. The siding will be the same redwood siding as is on the existing house. The windows are true to form Goodman houses. We've lived in this house for 39 years and honored the house. And I've worked in Holland Hills and literally hundreds of houses in Holland Hills. And I understand what the dynamics are that you're talking about. And I have represented in these drawings exactly what it's going to look like. And if the permit branch requires some sort of details, I'm happy to supply them, but it's not going to change what the building looks like from the outside. And with all due respect, we'd like to proceed and build it.
And yeah, and I don't think anybody here is trying to say that you're trying to pull one over on us or anything like that. I don't think that's the intention behind our comments. I can speak for myself in saying that. I think I can speak for others, but I'll let them say what they have to say. I think what we're saying is that, well, at least what I'm saying, in my experience on this board, having done, I don't know how many of these applications now, hundreds at this point, it's just not what we're used to seeing as far as having the amount of detail to know exactly what's being done. And maybe others disagree with me, maybe they agree with me, I don't know. Those are my comments. Thank you.
So I'm also happy to add on that too. So in the ARB's bylaws, section 7204, item 6 describes what the ARB may require of applicants. And we actually give the ARB quite a lot of latitude as to what we may require an applicant to bring in for submission. It doesn't perfectly align with what the county for the permitting might require, but because we are a board that is trying to co-align historic properties with new construction in many cases, we have a great deal of flexibility on the requirements of those packages. It can include things as simple as just a description of the project, but it also can be plans, topography, grading plans, schematics, material submissions. We have had folks bring in physical materials to present to this board so that we're certain that they're comporting to what's being constructed. Again, I agree with Mr. Zellman. I'm not questioning that you're probably planning to build what you're proposing to build. However, as we just pointed out, we want to be consistent with how we review. We just reviewed another project at Holland Hills and gave a much more detailed submission package for their submission. We've done others for construction that are much more detailed. And I think what I'm hearing is, as members, we're just not getting the full picture here. And we might recognize the intent of trying to meet that match with the property. We're not seeing it in the drawings the way we would want to see it, in a way that matches what we expect for submissions. Normally, the way we usually get through this is when applicants come in for workshop sessions, we can let them know what we might want to see when they come in for their final submission, so they know what to expect when coming into the board for the first time. Also, staff obviously tries to help, but the new system we unfortunately have, called Plus, basically allows stuff to just get dropped on top of our staff, and they get to just go, hey, that's what we got, instead of setting up early coordination meetings with applicants. So I agree with Ms. Murray that I think it would have been better to have a little bit more of a context for the property in itself, so I could kind of lay the design against the new house. I would defer to our architects as to whether or not they would want to see things like wall details and stuff like that. That's not something as an architectural historian I'm going to want to look at. As an architectural historian, that's not what I'm going to be as interested in. I'm more interested in the dialogue of your addition to your existing house.
Which I tried to, in this application, depict with the numerous photographs. And I think I quite clearly expressed it on those drawings. There are lines that show what's the existing and what's the new. I'm trying to imagine what you all want and what I could provide. If I could just snap my fingers and make another drawing right now, I don't know what it would look like.
John, you have your hand up as well.
Yeah, you asked us to review the design, so I'll make some comments on the design.
Thank you.
And I agree with my colleagues that I find the submittal overall, I'll just call it thin. Marginal perhaps, but the one thing that's lacking that doesn't make it easy for us to assess the design is the starting point. There's no drawing that shows the house as it is now. Presumably you have that as the basis for these drawings, but you're proposing to put an addition that will cover a character-defining feature of this particular house, which is the window wall that goes across the historic dining room and the kitchen. You're going to lose all the kitchen windows. It looks like you're going to lose the original door and all, but I think 2 of the windows in that window wall on that side of the house.
Yeah.
And so that's a significant change in the character of the property, and without being able to compare the elevation drawings you provided with what's there now, it's hard for us to assess the impact of that change and whether or not it diminishes the historic character of the property. So that's a design issue. Another design issue I'm puzzled by is, although the roof slope of the existing addition is going to match the new addition, it extends further. And so you have this kind of little odd setback in the length of the overhang.
Right.
And I don't understand the purpose of that. It's not explained in any of the materials. But again, it strikes me as an incongruous detail that could have been easily rectified simply by making the finished edge in the same plane. I don't ask you.
Well, I think, as far as I know, you all have reviewed a building at the end of Record Lane, and the overhangs were found to be insufficient because they were continuous, and the people there had to put a jog in the overhang. So I thought this would
I'm not talking about previous ones. Each of these houses is unique. They have similar floor plans, but they're set differently in the topography. They're set different angles to one another, and so the relationship of one building to another, doesn't really make a significant difference. But you haven't yet stated, I made this roof overhang different because. So
I made that roof overhang different because the original overhang that I put on the studio, I decided was insufficiently overhung. So I wanted to make it stand out a bit further. And because of the location of the building, it's virtually invisible. It's certainly invisible to anybody from the street. People would have to walk down my driveway and into the front yard to see what you're speaking about in terms of that overhang. It's at the same time, if I could finish my response, we have limited funds. I don't want to spend the money to put that overhang back out where I wish it was, but it doesn't really change the fact that the building as designed is, it just fits the program. It fits the Holland Hills program. And, there are many, many houses in Holland Hills where the kitchen windows have been built over. Many houses in Holland Hills have additions that do that, and do that over a great many of the other Goodman windows that are part and parcel of Holland Hills. What I've done, I've gone, to to great lengths to design it so that it was in keeping with the Goodman style.
Okay, one of the things I've learned about this historic overlay district is that anything that was existing at the time that the Board of Supervisors approved the historic overlay district was grandfathered. So we have no ability to review or consider anything that went before.
Okay.
We are charged with protecting the historic character of the Holland Historic Overlay District at the time that it was authorized by the Board of Supervisors. So, you know, what somebody did in 1958 or 1972, or even in 2022, early in 2022, you know, has no bearing on our ability to review. So I'm just saying, this strikes me as an incongruity in that particular design, but we can disagree on that. Another question I had was the two sheds that you're building onto the existing addition. They're just like this little bump out thing. They have a flat roof, not a slope roof. So I don't know how you.
It's actually a very low pitch roof.
So we'll have some rain though. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
But you provided us some photographs that showed a very nice enclosed grass area there, right?
Right.
And now you're proposing to put up shed doors.
Well, actually, the grass area that are in those photographs aren't where that shed's going to be at all. And
But again, if we had more information, we perhaps could evaluate that. And again, it gets back to the comment about this is a relatively thin application in terms of the amount of information you're sharing with us. So, but anyway, my concerns are the loss of character of the original window wall that stretched from the original dining room across the kitchen. And I think that that affects the historic character of the property, and that would be my comment about this.
Okay, and I, if I could, I would just comment that in order to connect all of the square footage that the house currently has and make it a livable house as we use it now, we would turn the studio into a guest room, the bathroom goes with it, the dining room then is the connection to the existing house. As it stands, we are not connected to the studio portion of the house, and we desire to make it a single building. So if we were prohibited from building in front of the kitchen, then we'd be prohibited from connecting the studio to the existing house.
Yeah, I'm not questioning your program or your desire to have spaces that suit your family needs.
Right.
But I'm just commenting on the impact of the proposed changes that you're suggesting that you want to make on the historic character of the property.
Right, and you know, I would just then comment that the addition which we're proposing has 4 Goodman modules, which are a fair representation, in my opinion, of the designs that exist in Holland Hills, and if you will, make up for the fact that we're screening off the original Holland Hills kitchen windows. It's essential, if we're going to be able to enjoy the existing space and the new space that we want to build, to be allowed to build on that deck area. And I feel, I feel very strongly about Goodman's designs. And, I've counseled customers, and I've built accordingly, and I've designed accordingly.
Mr. Plumlee?
Sure thing.
I want to give him, unless you want to defer
Thank you
to
so very
John.
much for your comments and everything, and I appreciate the dialogue. I'm the landscape architect on the board, not an architect, but I've been doing this enough. I've been one of the older members on the board, time-wise. But it seems like I'm going around in circles a little bit here. My suggestion is have the applicant come back again with better drawings, or I should say better drawings, but maybe thicker drawings instead of thinner drawings, okay? You said they were thin drawings, but perhaps, because right now it's not like we're almost in a workshop session, just talking about what should we do and everything like that, as opposed to an actual review for approval. So I just wanted to ask the chair, perhaps, do we ask the applicant if he'd like to defer or take a vote? Because I think we're going around in circles here of what is, one's opinion and so forth. So
That's a fair question. I want to give John, I think, has one additional comment too, and then I'll let you answer that question once
Okay.
John, I think I incorrectly cut you off.
No problem. One last comment on design issues. You mentioned that you respect and counsel other clients
Yes.
on what it takes to make a Goodman house.
Right.
And to how to protect the character of the Goodman house. One of the things that strikes me, again, is, I'll use the word incongruous, is that the end of the house that faces the street in a community that is known for acres of glass has no windows.
Well, if you come up to the property, you realize just how close we are to the street. We're
Well, I
really,
understand
really
that.
close to the
But I'm
street.
just saying that's
And
not
as I
safe.
showed in the first photograph, we're at the end of the Martha Circle. So every car that comes around Martha Circle at night in either direction is shining their headlights into our house. And that's why we have a berm with bushes, and it's a very private piece of property. And primarily, that was caused by the fact that we're dead at the end of that circle, and those strobes come across the house all night long. So that's my answer.
So, thank you. I appreciate, again, the explanation. That helps to flesh out the information that you're providing to us.
Good,
And that
good.
helps us to be better able to review the design.
Good. And in fact, if the control of the drawings is possible, if you could go back to the first drawing, I'd really appreciate it. Or first photograph, I beg your
First
pardon.
photograph, gotcha.
There, the one with the little triangle. I just want to, have that sort of reemphasize what I said about how close we are to the street and the effect of swinging headlights coming from either direction around Martha's Road. So, to my way of thinking, and it's been a bit of a debate between Katie and I, the sun is coming from the west, which is the direction that triangle is pointing in. It would be nice to have that sun pour through the windows. It's not so nice to have the car's headlights pour through the windows. And that's why we put the windows to the north in the same direction as the dining room and kitchen windows are facing. And in fact, as the house was originally built, before it had any addition on it, it showed no glass to the street, none.
So I think we have thoroughly ventilated this topic with the questions from the members. I think what I'm hearing is we don't feel like we have a full understanding of the project. We haven't talked through it with you right now, but the set of plans and materials submitted to us didn't convey that. Even the fact that you just mentioned the original plan, that would be great information too. The original design would have shared excellent information on the context of your design here. But what we have submitted here, plus the conversation here, is all we have to go on to approve the project you're proposing. So what Mr. Plumby was talking about is we can take it up for action and vote on it, or if you think you gathered enough information that you would like to come back with additional materials to submit to us, you can. I mean, that's up to you.
No, I hear you. Yeah. I'll just reiterate that the drawings that I provided, I think if they're carefully studied, they show precisely where the new and the old is.
Mr. Galinsky.
Yeah, if you don't mind. It's been pointed out by Ms. Murray that the application isn't necessarily complete according to our standards. We can ask the applicant to go back and give a more full, it's not going to change the design here. I think talking through this has helped me to see it. I don't know if any other board member has seen it, to understand what we're getting. I don't know that we need to push the applicant back another month because the protections aren't in place to tell them that when he submitted the application that it's incomplete. I mean, I think we have to work on our process. So when an applicant comes in and gives something that would be.
I mean, the website says what the ARB could expect.
Yeah, but
there have been multiple
and
applications submitted to Holland Hills for projects. I mean, it's not like it's on record. I don't know if I want to drag staff to say that, I mean.
Well, of course, I'm not trying to add more to staff, and I know we've had staffing issues on where we're at. But if the staff's able to look at an application and deem it complete or not complete, I think that would be, no go sort of situation, and we wouldn't have the position here where somebody has to defend their work. When it's not, we're not talking about design, we're talking about, you know. did
I
you
mean,
do
the
this
only reason
properly?
I even feel like I might be willing to consider approval is now finding out what the original house looked like. But I didn't know that from the plans submitted or anything like that. That was only described during this conversation. So the context on the historic property, which is what I care about.
Sure, sure.
So that's,
It was my expectation that we would speak about it in just the same way that we are now, and that the photographs would reinforce what it is that
But
I'm
you said
telling
that the
you
building
what
is
I-
different than even what it is now.
I'm
sorry?
sorry, sir, but would we expect to have this information provided to us so we can review it before we come in here?
It was accepted.
It was accepted by who?
Okay.
Our staff doesn't review the review for acceptability. That's something that they do not do at this point.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm a little confused because, this, as I understand it, the ARB is a continuation of the design review committee process.
No, it is not.
Well,
It's
then I'm
totally
wrong there.
freestanding.
Then I'm wrong, but it doesn't change the fact that I brought to you what I consider to be a set of plans that were representative of what we want to do on the house. And I think as we've hashed it out here, any lack of clarity that you perceived has been clarified.
No, I do not believe so.
So at this point, I think,
Well, I'd like y'all to vote on it.
yeah, I was gonna say, I would suggest that there's a motion that someone wishes to make, they may make a
I
motion.
really appreciate it because, like I said, we came here in good faith. We've got an honest set of plans. We want to build it before the
Sure.
winter sets in.
All right, well, as the chair can't make motions,
I'd be happy to make the motion.
all right, and I think this is gonna have to be one that's gonna have to have each person do a roll call vote, just to make sure it's on record. All right, Mr. Kalinsky.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve action item ARB 23-HOL 33, located at 1931 Martha's Road, Alexandria, tax map 0934050149, Holland Hills HOD, for proposed one-story residential addition and storage shed addition submitted and presented at the September 14, 2023 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101, historic overlay districts.
All right, we have a motion, is there a second? I gotta have a second to hear it before I can vote on it.
I'll second it, Mr. Chairman.
Seconded by Ms. Aubrey. We'll go roll call order, so Ms. Murray.
Nay.
All right, Mr. Pumping,
I'm going to sustain because.
Abstain?
Yeah, that's right, abstain,
right.
please, thank you.
oh, Denise or Daniel, you're tracking this. All right, Mr. Burns,
Nay.
Ms. Swan,
Nay.
Mr. Zelman? No. I also, nay? Yes?
Nay.
Ms. Ward, nay. All right, the motion fails. Oh, Ms. Murray, I'm sorry, and Ms. Murray, Ms. Aubrey. Ms. Aubrey,
I vote aye.
aye. All right, we have 2 in favor, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 against, and 1 abstention. Motion fails to carry. Do we need to take a motion to deny, or is that considered acceptable, Daniel?
Make a motion. I don't think you need to take a motion to
Okay.
deny. You can
Wanted to make sure.
approve it.
All right, well, at this time, the motion does not carry. I think there are things that if they come back in another submission, I think it would probably be come back up for approval. But based on the dialogue here, we're just a little too confused about the design overall and how it fits into the house. Rather than trying to go through it some more, I definitely would encourage you to reach out to Daniel and Denise and staff to see if they can get you the information that was shared today, as well as the meeting, recordings. So hopefully we can see you back again.
Oh, I understand what happened. What I'd like to understand is what you all want to see when we come back. And if somebody could give that to me in writing, I'd really appreciate it, because I'm still of the opinion that there is more than enough information there to understand what it is we're proposing.
First of all, your plat, you know that this handwritten plat will not fly in Fairfax County. So you've got to take your plat that you've got from, and maybe you have to get a new survey done. I don't know the Fairfax, because if it's 30 years old, maybe. But so that plat, you put and get this deck on it so that that is showing. And it's, building your drawings for permitting and all the things that are required for permit. And that's what we're expected to see, because we require every applicant to show us that. Everybody does. And if we let you slide, we're gonna have to let everybody else slide.
I'm not asking for anybody to let me
So
slide. What I
construction
absolutely, excuse me.
Documents is construction documents. You see a lot of them, you know exactly what I'm talking about. What is going for permit is what we want to see.
That is what I would take to permit, and that is what I built the previous edition on.
Right.
You know,
All right. So what I would suggest is we can definitely work with you through staff, and I would definitely encourage you to reach out to Daniel to talk about what type of materials we would be looking for. And I will work with him to help you on that front.
well, Daniel and I have spoken before, but I thought I was just told, I beg your pardon?
Please, sir, we have a fairly long agenda. If you would just please call the staff. You're not going to convince us tonight.
I know I'm not going to convince you. I
Well, then why
just
do you-
want to know what you want to see.
Ask Daniel to explain it to you. I think it's not something that can be done in 3 words. You need to work with staff.
Do you mind writing it down?
That's not my job. And I don't know if staff wants to write it down. That may not be their job.
I'll be in touch tomorrow, Mr. Shapiro.
I appreciate it. Thank you all very much for your time.
All right, moving onward and upward, our next item is ARB 23 HOL 00031 7527 Elma Road, Justine Residence Addition. The applicant is proposing a 400 square foot addition to a previous addition at the back of the existing house. This one is being represented by Mr. Thomas Kearns.
Right.
Yes, it is. Mr.
Yes.
Thomas Kearns, okay.
Great.
Mr. Kearns, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to quickly review with you the conceptual design that was approved, I think in the March meeting. Next, please. Next. The project is located on Elba Road, which is one of our major streets in New Holland Hills, and backs into a park. There's an existing addition. Next. About 50 years ago, there was an addition about 20-foot square added to the rear of the home against the park, away from the street. And to access the addition, you had to walk through the master bedroom. Next. Proposed addition creates a new link on the center line of the existing house and provides 2 new bedrooms, a bath, a laundry. And the addition is basically a doubling of the length of the previous 20 by 20 square. And the new addition is separated from the existing Goodman house by an 8-foot wide garden. Next. So we basically are extending a 20-foot, we're extruding an addition from 20 feet to 40 feet in length and providing a new link on the center line of the existing house within all setbacks and away from public space. Next. This is one of the permit drawings currently in for permit. We have basically Holland Hills window types. A comment from the ARB at the workshop was that we needed to have an egress window, which we've provided in the bedroom. It's a 3x5 casement window. The DRC also recommended that. And the DRC also asked for box gutters, which were already on the project. Next. These photos show the existing condition. Unfortunately, the addition has a 4 and 12 pitch roof, which is different from the original Goodman house. And in addition to that, the fascia is 2x6 framing. Our design intent is, our design and the contract documents require for that entire overhang to be removed and replaced with 2x4 framing with a 5x5 box gutter to echo the Goodman details. Next. The materials for the addition are similar to, we're just extruding again the T111 siding, the 2x6 clear dug fir framing, insulated glass, and changing the fascia profile. Next. Here you can see the 4 and 12 pitch, and we're basically pulling that addition forward and recentering the link. Unfortunately, the roof pitch is what it is. And then from the rear of the property, this is the last existing photo. Here you can see the existing width, and we are extending that on either side, providing a new fiberglass roof, and all new all new plantings. We're raising the T111 off of the grade. It's too tight now, providing 8 inches of cementitious or parged cement as a foundation, and then regrading the site out. Unfortunately, right now it slopes toward the building. An important detail is the wall section in the upper left. You can see the requirement for the 2x4 outriggers. All the windows are Holland Hills types, in addition to the 3x5 egress casement. And we have sliding glass doors to also satisfy code egress. That's what I have. Thank you.
All right. All right, is there any member of the public that wishes to comment on this item? Now, for our two last applicants, so there's no members of the public unless they want to surprise me, these three gentlemen back here. All right, we move on to questions and comments from the board. Yes, Mr. Plumpy.
Excellent job presentation. I would maybe should consult the previous applicant, obviously. And, as a side note, Daniel, maybe this application could be sent to show that what should be done. So thank you so much. Excellent job.
Thank you.
Mr. Burns?
Yeah, I'm curious, HVAC.
Yes.
What's brought into it?
We're providing a new electric 2-ton AC, 60,000 BTU heat pump that runs through a lowered ceiling through the laundry and bathroom, but the bedrooms are maintain cathedral ceilings.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a separate unit.
Well, thank you for the complete set of drawings. I found the foundation brick.
Yeah,
But
I have it here too, just in case.
in terms of design, I mean, in terms of the design, I mean, it's appropriate. It's the rear of the property. It plays off the existing form. I think you've actually improved what was there. The addition that was made over time. So it's distinguishable from the original. The interplay, the little hyphen helps break it apart. There's not going to be a question when somebody, who has some sort of knowledge is going to walk in there and be able to tell, this is original, this is
right.
New. So all the things that in this, in that adding on in the historic district that makes sense. So very well done. And does Ms. Murray have comments or an interest in making a motion?
Well, I was going to say, this one came in while I was out, I believe, so I was not here for the workshop. So I appreciate you going over what was asked of you during the workshop, because while the minutes are helpful, it's always helpful for me to know that. I think if anything, the most helpful thing for me is the conceptual plan, because I can look at right here and see exactly what you're proposing here to add on to the house. It's telling to me. I really do hope that there are sets of plans that aren't the photograph versions. That was the only thing that threw me off when I got this, was the plans being photographed in, like, it looked like they were a picture of the plan itself. So they were a little warped, but I get the feeling that meant there was a set somewhere to get digitally submitted.
No, there is a set. It's submitted. It's hopefully almost ready.
Oh, okay. No, that's all I had to add on this. So I appreciate you taking in my colleagues' comments, and if there are none.
Well, one thing I thought of, is there lighting design, exterior lighting?
It's just got to be security lighting on the under the eaves. Nothing significant.
And we should have mentioned that for Mr. Shapiro as well. Thank you.
All right. If there are no other comments, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I would move that the ARB approve action item ARB 23-HOL-31, located at 7527 Elma Road, Alexandria, tax map number 0933130005, Holland Hills Historic Overlay District, for the proposed one-story residential addition as submitted and presented at the September 14th, 2023 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101 Historic Overlay Districts.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Burns. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those abstain? No, any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job. Thank you.
All right, taking it out of Holland Hills finally. We go to ARB 23 LFK 06. This is 1011 Turkey Run Road, pool gazebo. This applicant is requesting approval for a previously constructed pool gazebo as part of the permitting process. Mr. Jamori.
Good
Here
evening,
representing the application.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Kevin Jamori here, presenting the application. This is an atypical application because of the circumstances. I believe peak of COVID being the timing may have played a role in this going the way it did. May I have the next slide, please? I don't know if you've had the opportunity, I'm sure you have had the opportunity to look at the documents that were submitted. I can bore you with how we got here if you want to hear it, or you choose if you're comfortable with what was submitted.
I think if you want to give a short summary, since this is something that we've seen in the past, I think that'd be enough.
Okay.
And we'll go to public comment.
Sure enough, thank you very much. So this original application for this development was filed in front of you. We were in 2018. In 2019, some 3 or 4 tries later, the board approved the development application thanks to Mr. Pumpy and his input so much that he recused himself from voting on the application. Then after your approval, the grading plan went to the county in 2020. In February of 21, we filed a revision to move the pool to the current location as shown in the rendering and added the gazebo. I reached out to the Heritage Resources to ensure or ask for a meeting to present the changes, and we got an email back from them that this is within the limits of disturbance that was already approved, and the changes do not require ARB approval. And a copy of that email exchange was in the documents that we submitted to you. So after that response, we submitted the revision of the grading plan to the county. It got approved. Somehow, the gazebo got inspected as a part of the original construction drawings and building plans for the building. And then the project finished, and we got our RUP, and the property changed hands. The new owners hired a contractor to make changes to the gazebo and other parts of the property. And during that permitting process, the county realized that they do not have approved architectural drawings, building drawings on the gazebo, and they mandated that such approval from the ARB is required, and here we are doing this. Next, this is a rendering of the gazebo from looking south, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. And next, please. These are site photos, the way the gazebo was built. I thought I had marked these, what the views are. But the material to the gazebo, the columns and all are identical to what to the right side is the entrance, the basement well. It's CPVC columns and the headings, and the roof shingles match the house. Next, please. This is a different view looking east of the gazebo with PVC fencing and all of that to this side. Next, please. This is the interior of the gazebo with the fireplace on the end. Again, this is looking eastward. Next, please. This is the view showing the McCall Hall historic house and the basement well entrance to the house. Next, please. And these are architectural drawings that were submitted to the county. The county has reviewed them, and like I said, the biggest comment they have is approval by the ARB on this. I don't know if you would like to go in. This is
No,
the.
I think you summarized it well.
Okay,
For the sake of the situation, I've looked if there's any members of the public. Definitely don't see any members of the public, so no members of the public have comment. Again, I commented to all of you in an email that this is a highly irregular situation that we find ourselves in with this regarding the fact that we are reviewing and approving something that is already constructed, but as indicated, it is something that is required before the application following it can actually even be considered is for this one to actually be approved. So I would turn to any members of the board if they have any questions for Mr. DeVore. Yes, Mr. Zelman.
Not so much a question, Mr. DeVore, just, I looked at the application when it came in, I appreciated everything you provided, and I'm pleased that you referenced the email with county staff, but, I'm a lawyer, as I mentioned earlier, so I read things carefully, I just wanted to make sure I hadn't misread it. I don't see anything in these pictures where I have a problem necessarily with what was done. I do have a problem with the process of how we got here. And in reading the email from our county staff, it does talk about a relocation of the pool and it's still being within the area, but it does not mention construction of a gazebo anywhere. So I think that's where things got lost and that's an issue. And so I think that's why there's probably, you may hear some frustration from some others this evening, but my frustration is not with what was done, but how we got there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zelman. Any other members of the board? Comments, questions? All right. Hearing none, I would entertain a motion for this item if someone's willing to make one.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Zelman.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, I would move that the ARB approve action item ARB 23 LFK 06 located at 1011 Turkey Run Road in McLean, tax map 02223010050 in the Langley Fork Historic Overlay District for the previously constructed pool gazebo as required by the permitting processes submitted and presented at the September 14th, 2023 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101 historic overlay districts. Mr. Chairman, I would like to also have the record reflect that there was a lack of compliance for this application for ARB 23 LFK 06. While the ARB has approved this application, it's being approved post-construction as the applicant did not include the pool gazebo structure on the plans that were previously presented to and voted on by this board. This has required the ARB to review the design of an as-built structure and as a violation of the processes outlined in the zoning ordinance in relation to properties within the historic overlay districts.
All right, so I have a second for that lengthy motion. Seconded by Ms. Murray. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Mr. Dewar.
See.
All right. That brings us on to our last item for action, ARB 23 LFK 07. Back again to 1011 Turkey Run Road for a gazebo addition to a recently approved gazebo. Applicant is proposing to add an addition to the existing pool gazebo. We are represented by Donald Smith and Omar Said. Good morning. Good evening, gentlemen. Floor is yours.
Thank you. We were before you guys on March 20 or March 9th, early, I guess that was late winter, early spring. We had some comments related to our plan, which is a proposed addition to the gazebo that was just, sounds like approved. Comments that we had directed towards, I'm sorry. Just bear. The comments we had directed to our plans was lack of clarity and contrast in the structural drawings. So we provided kind of basically more contrast. I guess should go by slide. Actually, I'll start over. Sorry. So this is the plat layout. The lighter red image is basically our construction access, and the darker red represents the L-shaped addition onto the existing gazebo pool cabana. And then that yellow blot is the historic building that exists on the property. These are views from Turkey Run. So you can kind of see up the driveway. You can see the historic property on the right-hand side. And then the aerial view shows the marker in relation from the historic building to our proposed pool house addition. The last gentleman actually had better photos of the existing, the pool cabana that exists, and our intent is to match the existing architecture of, and components of the existing pool cabana. So along those lines, the slate roof would match our addition. The backside would actually be because of the shallower pitch, would be a standing seam metal roof. We can provide that for clarity. The flooring extension would match the pool terrace. Inside, essentially, the outdoor kitchen is being pushed out. The materials are to match what's existing. Stone on the house, a granite countertop. There is storage area and then a proposed bathroom. That's a component of that. All that would be enclosed, and the doors accessing that would be some sort of stained wood, stained or painted wood. Columns would match, our extended columns on our addition would match those existing. Gutters and downspouts would match the existing home and existing structure. The appliances for the outdoor kitchen would be stainless steel. So these are perspectives. I think we had these in the original presentation back in March. This is showing basically from the lawn side. Right elevation. Yeah, right elevation. Yeah.
I think you were unfairly treated by the fact that we did not notice it because you existed when you first came. Sure. So there was a lot of clarity we needed for you. So some of which you didn't even know we needed.
Correct. Front elevation. So this would be looking at the chimney. This would be kind of our largest, expansion would be onto the right side. That roof would tie in and it would be in the same material. This is just starts to get into structural and framing and ultimately foundation plans. But it does show kind of what we're proposing as the addition. This is the back side, the lower slide. These are the two slides we were asked to provide from the last meeting. As you can see, there's a slope on the back side. The finish on the building exterior would be a board and batten painted similar to the existing columns and trim on the pool cabana.
And these haven't changed.
Yes.
You just submitted structurals.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So again, from our last meeting, we were asked to provide more contrasted plans, easier to read, and then also the two additional perspectives.
I think you've all absolutely done that, and I think a list of materials is another nice note to provide another applicant to help them understand what things we might be looking to know about. That being said, thank you. I'm just going to acknowledge again, thank you for having to endure the process we had to go through to get you to actually submit the application for what you were here to submit. There are no members of the public in the room, so let the record show that there could be no comment from them. So I look to any of the members of the board if they have any comments or questions for the applicant. Seeing none, again, I reiterate again, thank you on that, and I would look to a motion if there's a motion to be made by a member. So you've been on a roll, so.
Right motion here. Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve action item ARB 23 LFK 07 located at 1011 Turkey Run Road, McLean, tax map 0223010050 in the Langley Port Historic Overlay District for the proposed addition to the pool gazebo, as submitted and presented at the September 14, 2023 ARB meeting. On review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101 Historic Overlay Districts.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Zellman. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you guys so much. Have a good evening.
All right, that takes us out of our items for action. At nearly 8 o'clock. Moving one, but we did it. That takes us items for workshop session. So as everyone knows, we're holding a special workshop session next week on Monday. Same bat time, same bat channel for those applications. Which Ms. Aldrin might join us in person. We can remember to get.
We will just be in rooms 2 and 3.
And okay, there we go. We were in rooms 2 and 3. Appreciate all of you being willing to accommodate that. I think we kind of knew. I know you can't, John. But when we knew that we might be coming into that, given the fact that it took our August recess. We have no presentations, so it takes us on the board and staff items. We've got a few board and staff items to go through, so we'll try to go through them fast. First and foremost is review and action approval on the previous month's meeting minutes, which should be the July 13th and July 17th meetings, but we had to have 2 then too.
Obviously, were there any comments provided, Daniel, or Denise, on those minutes?
I
Think so. All right. If there are no comments from members here, I would entertain a motion to approve and pay the recording secretary. Mr. Zeldin.
Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for the July 13 and July 17 ARB meetings and to pay the recording secretaries for the July 13 and July 17 ARB meetings.
All right, do we have a second? Second by Ms. Murray. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstention, I wasn't here.
All right, Mr. Walensky has abstained, so one abstention. Motion passes. All right, treasurer's report. Michelle, this is your last official treasurer's report, I think. So as of 8/31, we have $21,130.73, and then we can relieve Michelle of her treasurer duties. Denise, Daniel, any updates on those amounts?
No.
Okay. All right. I guess that's a question. Do we need someone to act as treasurer once Michelle stops? I mean, I know that it's really more of an honorific title that she holds, but she does get to keep that amazing gold key to the vault. So.
Let me scroll back to that. The bylaws read if the ARB chooses to elect a treasurer.
Okay.
So it's not a requirement.
So we don't have to have one, but it's always nice to. Because we do, I think you all would recall, Michelle had to run a meeting once when Mr. Zellman and I could not be here. She had to chair it.
And the treasurer used to have a big checkbook, that's right.
Yeah, with those big checks like the size of the hand, right?
Not like publishers.
Okay. All right.
Your last chance to write yourself a
Yeah.
check, Michelle.
It's not direct deposit.
All right, so let's go on to administrative. Updated planner 2 and ARB meeting support. So obviously one, I'll just point out, we have an actual ARB staffer for the first meeting, which is awesome. And we somehow have microphones too, which is kind of crazy. I took the name of that person down, so we'll see if we can keep making that happen. But let's hear about the planner 2 position and other updates.
Yes, so we have made a hire for the planner 2 position. He is coming from Los Angeles County. His first meeting will be in October. He starts October 9th. So we will still be supporting Daniel through October. While his name is Jonathan Kaplan, while Jonathan gets his legs underneath him. He is currently an AOB administrator for 6 of LA County's HODs.
We'll see if we can give him a run for his money. Okay, that's excellent news. I will say on that kind of same note, I held a meeting with Leanna and Daniel and Denise. And obviously, one of the first things I advocate for is staff, because we need staff reports. Second of all was the fact that the situation we just dealt with this last set of applications, and that's where that special motion you had came from. The other item I would bring up in this situation is there was another motion you'll see here in the back of this, the admin motions that relate to not just paying the secretary, but also one that we could direct the county heritage resources staff to identify and investigate situations regarding what's going on and what the problem is we have regarding approvals and follow-ups on approvals to make sure that what we're approving actually gets done. So this was a suggested motion made by staff, and when talking to Leanna, she said the more we can be more direct in our motions about this, the more we can kind of empower heritage resources to say this is an issue that we're suffering from. Because as Mr. Zellman pointed out, we have something that we approved, and then staff approved a change that I think would have been acceptable, but then a whole other activity was constructed and built, and we only found out about it when the poor applicant showed up.
And if I could just, I wasn't trying to be on the soapbox, but I felt like there was some comments directed at the county staff, and I had read the email, and what county staff said was not consistent with what I felt was said, and so I felt like I needed to say something.
You said it far better than I was. Not the lawyer.
And thank you for saying, because I too noticed the proposed gazebo, not an actual gazebo.
But this motion right here, if someone would be interested in making it or something similar to it, would help us start to gather information on how we might more effectively enforce
what we are approving, which I think we identified as part of the problem is we approve something and we just kind of take on good faith that everyone, like one of our applicants says that they're going to do right by the historic property. I think we can all note that the historic property in the last two applications was barely an afterthought in photographs. So
Are you calling for a motion?
I would love a motion if someone's willing to make one.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Burns.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the NRD direct Heritage Resources staff to identify and investigate enabling legislation, as well as conduct a survey of comparable jurisdictions for standards and practices used as follow-up measures to approvals issued by VACs similar to this board. Staff will present their findings to the NRD for consideration of implementing a check on applications after they have received board approval and construction has been completed.
Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Gore. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. There we go. I didn't mean to piggyback that all on top of it, but I figured I'd just update everything that I spoke to Leanna about. And I'm going to use this for one other item because it's not on the agenda, but it's administrative too, I think, is obviously you'll note that we have missing members. I recently the letter went out informing the Board of Supervisors, the clerk, that we were vacating Ms. Dawkins' position. I did have a chance to speak to Ms. Dawkins, and I don't think she'd mind me telling you that she unfortunately had her husband pass earlier this year, as well as some other health situations she's been dealing with, and so that has really constrained her ability to serve on the board. She appreciated the letter acknowledging her years of service, but she doesn't think that she is going to be capable of serving on the board, and so was perfectly okay with the position being vacated. She also offered to help suggest potential architects that we might recommend to the situation, which brings us obviously to the fact that not just an architect will be leaving our board, but an archaeologist, and there has been a fervor of efforts to try to find us an archaeologist. Even one of my colleagues in my office has also approached staff about it too. So, and Mr. Burns, so that is, I will just say I was just attending a meeting on equity in boards, authorities, and commissions today. And one of the universal issues that every one of the boards brought up, and we were very disparate in consideration of all the boards on there, everyone had a problem with appointments. That either someone gets appointed and they are basically worn to the bone by their appointment because there's no one that will take their place. And for some of those boards, it's got to be much tougher than us, I feel like, but that there's not enough support to county staff finding appointments, and that there's just this expectation that people will come out of nowhere and suddenly say, I want to run on the board. So obviously, we're in a situation that Ms. Michelle and Ms. Dawkins, and I was recently informed by Ms. Campbell that she is also continuing to step away from her role on the board as well. So that'll leave us 3 members down, which makes it very difficult to maintain a quorum if someone gets sick or we can't host a virtual meeting where someone has any other obligations they have to attend to. And don't tell me you're going anywhere, Joe.
No. I was gonna say, what is the quorum? So what's the number of the people we need the quorum now with the
Made a
departures?
Quorum of 6.
Six
In
person in the room.
And how many members do we have now? 8?
What's Michelle's?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're down to 8.
Yeah. Numbers will be close.
You're looking at it.
Yeah, you're looking at it right here. What I'd ask is if you have ideas or suggestions, you reach out to them, and you also have them reach out to their supervisor staff, as well as to Denise and Daniel, to basically indicate their interest. At this point, I will advocate for someone who's not in the appointing original supervisor's district to basically say it doesn't matter to me, I need an appointee on the board.
Has anybody contacted county archaeology?
Yes, we have been working with Liz on that.
And have you also talked to the history commission's new architect? We have a new architect there. Did you talk to the history commission's new archaeologist, Kevin Bradley?
I don't know if we did. I know we talked to Liz.
You talked to Liz, great.
The archaeologist seems to be presenting an easier opportunity than the architect and the other position.
Well, I don't know about that because, I have been talking with Liz Crowell, and she's been making inquiries with people that she's familiar with who live in Fairfax County. And she's been unsuccessful. I mean, the people just are feeling it would be an overwhelming addition to what they're already doing, and so they're unwilling to take it on. So I looked through the Society for Historical Archaeology membership, which I'm a member, so I can get access to their membership list. And I discovered that there are only about 7 archaeologists who live in Fairfax County. And yeah, I mean, because you can query the database by where people live. And it was astounding. I mean, if we were in Williamsburg, we'd have no problem. If we were in Jamestown, we'd have no problem. Or even the city of Alexandria, no problem. But Fairfax County, there's a problem because there just aren't that many people that live here who are archaeologists. But she is going to go through the list. I gave it to her yesterday and see if she can drum up some interest on the part of people. But I will also add, I don't know if the board has ever had this problem. If you couldn't find somebody who was within the jurisdiction of the county, but maybe you could find somebody who was in Prince William County or Arlington, can you get an exception?
Unfortunately, we can't. They have to be a county resident to be appointed to the board. But I will say, I was just told today that one of my colleagues actually contacted their county staff and actually indicated their interest in the appointment. Her name is Rachel Magnum.
Right.
So that is at least someone who actually said, I'm interested. And
okay. That's good.
You do it like I do it and not get into legal conflicts. So I don't know if that guarantees anything, but at least we have one potentially interested candidate. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't be hunting them down. Those 7, that's easy. We can round those folks up and trap them in a room and make them make a decision. That's not that hard. I did find out that the problem is a lot of them are in Vienna, Arlington, and Alexandria. They don't want to live in the county proper. They want to live just outside. But not the town itself.
Yes, I'm a town again resident.
You're in town again? Okay, well,
The cities, they can't live in the cities, Falls Church.
Yeah, it's Falls Church. It's City of Falls Church.
Herndon's a town.
Yeah. How we doing? Yes, Mr. Burns.
Mr. Chairman, it would be helpful if we had position descriptions. Because I've got any number of organizations that are willing to post something to their members, but what do they post?
So,
if we had
I've asked that today as well. Do we have a position description?
Yeah. I've been giving people a copy of the bylaws and directly into the website.
Daniel, what do you have for us?
I can say I was approached by your colleague and have something put together for when she reaches back out to me. Our position is to direct people to the bylaws because that describes the work. I'm also meeting with an interested architectural historian tomorrow who has expressed interest. She expressed interest earlier this year when we did not have 3 vacancies. But we have heard from Supervisor of Historic's office has said they've heard from 2 people, both archaeologists. I only know of the one. So there is movement. And like the email I sent to all of you, we were proactive in reaching out to the respective supervisors' staffs because there's only 2 more dates that someone could be appointed this calendar year. Yes.
I was going to say, just real quickly, can we have more than one archaeologist? Because
Well, what I was going to say is, doesn't the ordinance have a description of what the positions should be that are spelled out? And I believe there's professional requirements for the archaeologist.
There is, but I would say it's a thin, it's not a lot.
But it's something. And yes, we could have 2 archaeologists because that would be a related professional. Only one would be the.
I do think we would torture them because I know Michelle doesn't get to comment on a lot. And Holland Hills doesn't have that much archaeology, does it?
That looks pretty disturbed.
So, I mean, what I might suggest is, another thing I heard during the equity query about boards, authorities, commissions is that we can actually post these on some of the county boards, apparently, since what one of the members mentioned, or something to that. I didn't quite understand it, but I would recommend talking to Carla with the equity office because they talked about several of these other boards and authorities, how they actually listed their positions on county resources to get available to people because the one woman who was talking saw it on a flyer posting on a wall and that, and then she's like, now I'm president. That's like, yeah. So the more we can find ways to do that, and even if, Daniel, if it's possible for you to try to write a brief description for these, I think that would help us when it comes to sending them out to any listservs professionally.
Yeah, what I said, it would be helpful to have a position description. I was thinking more in terms of us marketing what we do. You know, we just can't tell them, well, this is the requirements. You have to make people want to get involved. You have to convince them that this is something that they want to do, which means you have to market what we do. So that's what should be in that.
I need to hire a PR firm for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but it sounds like we have some potential. I do still stand by my statement that if we're running into a situation regarding appointing supervisors, I'm willing to go to the bat for the fact that that is a holdover of a legacy fought there. We're all technically at large in reality. And so I don't wish to nail us down to having to have someone who has to be in a particular district if we're desperate for somebody. So I will actively do that. I'm also up for reappointment, so maybe I'll get, I don't know, kicked off the list and get too much.
Like Dan's gonna not reappoint. I think that based on the last round of History Commission, we do have trouble finding an archaeologist. And a gentleman named Kevin Bradley, who's professional, who works for a firm. I think he's like almost the whole branch. But the Board of Supervisors, he was appointed by Mr. Alcorn, but he doesn't live in our Harrisville district. So I think that there's becoming a little less, and there's never been as much possession on the Architecture Review Board. As I recall, Mr. Vogel was a petty close appointee.
Yeah, I was appointed by Pat Harity, and I don't live in his district anymore, and they still email, whenever I'm due, his office emails me asking me if I still want to serve, so. They're not beholden, I think, as much as they used to be.
All right, good. Okay, that was all I was going to preoccupy administrative with. We still have meeting location for the October 12th meeting. The Workhouse Arts Center is the proposed location.
It is the confirmed location.
Confirmed location. Excellent. We'll go to Lumpy's territory.
There this morning, so we will be there on October 12th. They're happy to host us.
All right, just remember to give yourself, for those of us that live on one side of the county, give yourself the time that the other Mount Vernon district folks give themselves.
Now you know.
Maybe we got a carpool, maybe Sam will carpool over there or something.
Do like we do.
3 hours ahead of time.
Get your shots.
My shots?
Yeah. Before you do South County.
Oh, South County. Oh, I'm updated on.
I was gonna say.
There's also a brewery down there too.
Not yet. Now we're talking like that next spring. They got health, access issues, but usually they supply refreshments and even a meal sometimes. At this time?
No, she asked if we were bringing things in, and I said no, that it would be an efficient.
They should bring us some.
Well, they're letting us use the space free of charge.
I want the board over there, so I think I can.
You're gonna pull some barbecue for us.
And that would be a conflict of interest because they're supplements.
Yeah, this is true. All right, any more administrative items, Daniel?
I have several.
Okay.
So,
Floor is yours.
quick update, the Reston Master Plan was adopted by the Board of Supervisors on Tuesday at their meeting. I know that's been on the agenda in the past few months.
I'll just throw in there before you say anything more about it. Everything changes that we had made to our section basically made it all the way through. So there are lots of sections that got redlined and remarked up. And the biggest thing I think that stayed in there is the Association Drive has language indicating that those buildings are historic and that there are incentives for folks to utilize them before just tearing them down. That doesn't guarantee us anything, but it's in there. It's in the plan. So it made it.
And then getting into new business, the nominating committee schedule we need to discuss. At next month's meeting, you need to put forward a committee. The committee needs to meet in November and vote. The board will vote in December on appointments to the committee for the next calendar year.
All right, so think about who wants to be in the nominating committee. Denise and Daniel for me actually have one more term left. I draw the short straw on the chair position again. I thought it was on 4, but it's 3 at the pandemic work time. So you have an interest in being on the nominating committee, let me know and we can make sure to form that this October.
Yes, and then before I get into the budget request, this is a tied-in discussion, I guess. We have been discussing internally recommending adding a standing second meeting every month to the 2024 calendar year. That schedule is set in December. A few reasons. This is the third split meeting we've had this calendar year since Holland Hills has come online. The caseload has increased by over 30%. So we as staff don't really see that decreasing. It's also my understanding from Denise that the July meetings were split and shorter and more efficient. So that is a way to contextualize 2 meetings as 2 set nights. We just want to just throw this into the discussion so that we can.
Let me add a little explanation on this. Is the way I now had to explain it to me, because I about crashed my car when they were telling me, was it's easier to have meetings on the calendar and not need them than to have to add these special meetings, because we have to pay a recording secretary every time. And if our budget doesn't account for the fact that we might every year have 4 additional meetings, we're suddenly going to run into a bit of a funds challenge. Whereas if we say we might meet twice a month, even if we cancel the second meeting automatically after we don't have enough applications, that's easier than the route of saying we're going to propose special meetings, which we can do, but could become rather untenable if we start to stack those up.
Sure. My mic's on first.
Oh, you definitely.
I was gonna say, I'm okay with the second meetings, and I asked Daniel, I think it was, and regarding if the second meeting could that be virtual, because there are usually workshops, just thinking out loud here. I know our bylaws say no because of the Fairfax County thing, but that would, I think, maybe solve our issue if you have a quorum or not for the second meeting, because we don't have enough members, or we just have enough members. This is called
Do they have to be in person if we're not voting on anything and there's no public
That's what I was gonna say. That's right.
I'll let Denise speak to this.
I think the answer is
the
yes.
county attorney.
Right, so I did, when we first went back in person, it was one of the first questions that I asked, when we were talking about holding a second meeting for workshops only.
Yes.
Since you all aren't taking a vote, do you have to be in person? But it's a state law. It's the state law that says that since you are an adjudicating, a quasi-regulatory, well, you're a regulatory board, you have to be in person.
Okay. I mean, there's the second meeting is, I'm gonna make the next one, but they can be challenging for me.
Yes.
I'm gonna be frank with you.
Well, that's why we were proposing, if we have it standing on the calendar, then we all know that this is a potential possibility.
So I guess my question was gonna be more about the process. What are we gonna, and maybe we don't answer this yet, do to determine, hey, we are gonna have the second meeting this month, or no, we're not gonna have the second meeting this month?
So
I know, I think the chair should decide.
as I was gonna say, as of late, I've been deciding, because I have a standing meeting, as I think most folks who've been in a chair position know, we have a standing meeting with county staff before this meeting. And we look at the agenda, and part of the problem is because of the system in which everything gets put into the system, we sometimes don't know until that meeting how many applications are coming in, and we look at this one. Amusingly, I didn't know that which one, actually I predicted which one was gonna be a problem, amusingly, I think. But we're looking at that, we're like, okay, this is gonna require a lot of discussion. We don't have the time to dedicate, as you pointed out, Joe. We get to this hour, and if someone comes in for a workshop, we're not giving them a fair shake. We're tired and worn out. So that's how I've been deciding it. It worked really well, as I think Denise pointed out, is actually doing them in that session. It meant that those meetings would be quick.
Sure thing. And I'm not trying to be sick of it or anything like that, but I will say this is like the application of the gentleman the builder guy. I think staff, I'm not trying to yell at you guys or something, but I think it needs to be like, he should not have been accepted to come here, because I would have said workshop or give more drawings. I think that's a waste of our time. Not waste, but it was, I know Mr. Clancy, you voted yay for it, but I just think it's, gotta be consistent. I think you brought up a good point. As presidents, we're trying to say here, let's keep it instead of not.
Well, and it's not problematic, but the way our bylaws are written, it gives us a great deal of latitude as to what we can expect. We can expect more than is expected for a building permit because we can say, no, bring physically in the bricks in front of us to show us. Bring in multiple samples of, your your ceiling material or roof material so we can look at it and weigh in on it. And so I think that will only get better the second we actually have more staff to support Daniel.
I assume that Nicole has left a process that's pretty well set up for Jonathan to step into.
So I think the first thing in my mind is rolling out the design guidelines that are sitting.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think we're formulating a plan in 2024 to bring the design guidelines that have been written, the updated design guidelines, to the public, get our public input, have that conversation, and then implement them with you all once you have approved them. And then from there, we can start writing and responding to the design guidelines with the new staff member, with staff reports.
Right now, a lot of it is, one, staff's best call when they get inundated with requests when they go through the plus submission system. I mean, Daniel and Denise can encourage someone to go to a workshop, but they do not have to. They can choose to come in and seek an application. The other side of it is obviously, I will say, if you see something in an application when Daniel sends out the files, I can still attempt to say, hey, we don't think this meets this, and request the applicant reconsider their position on this. It's more of a, I'm one expert on the board, and we're doing the best we can right now, I say. But the precedent argument for Holland Hills is, I think, the biggest thing. If you look at what has been submitted previously, I think that's where we would be able to stand, and this is what we've asked other applicants to bring in, and that's just getting.
It wasn't just Mr. Shapiro with an inadequate. Yeah, I want to say the solar guy was also inadequate.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, they should not have been on the agenda.
Show them an example of that terms. I think that's.
Oh, you have to get permission from
the
applicant.
I'm sorry.
I think he nodded yes.
Okay.
I was looking at it.
Well, I can be more forgiving to photos compared to plan sets.
Yeah.
That's where, oh, go ahead.
Are the applications like public knowledge? I mean, can you go online and see the application
Yes.
materials?
Yes.
Okay, because I know we have to sign in and use a password to get access to it.
The password is publicly published on your website.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the
Okay,
meeting
so
materials are.
So you can
But it's only up
you can
for
refer
limited
back to
time.
any
Yes,
of
it's
the
only up for.
prior.
But maybe ask Mr. Kern, he could use his as an example, at least one example, because I thought it was excellent. This concept was, boom.
I mean, and a lot of architects produce three-dimensional,
You got it. Yeah.
realistic
That's an
renderings. Mr. Kearns did, he did his old school by
Yeah.
hand, and very similar to Mr. Shapiro. So I mean, that would be a good example to say, this is
One
very
way.
similar to yours,
Exactly.
it's just more complete.
Completely, yeah.
So we did query LDS about Mr. Shapiro's application. That was it came to us with a question as well. Is this something that we can put forward? And that was the answer, the response that we got from LDS. I would, in hindsight, I would have insisted on a workshop, or strongly, I can't insist on anything, strongly encouraged a workshop. But it was a small addition, but it was on the front of the house. We did discuss it. It wasn't a pass through, so.
And I think you're right, though. The guidelines and all that other information will all, I think having that all together plus then the staff report situation will really help make but we keep saying that, I'll just say. So Daniel, you can't go anywhere.
You can't.
Yeah, you can't. Okay, any other comments on that item? All right.
So that does tie into two things I'm about to discuss for the budget for fiscal year 2025. We have an extension to after the October meeting because the draft was due September 22nd, which we would obviously not meet due to the August recess. So I will be coming to the October meeting with a draft for you to review. You'll have it ahead of time of the budget that we'll be submitting, but we are recommending 2 additional requests. One of these came up in the conversation with Leanna, Chris, Denise, and I, is the potential of a one-time technology expense to purchase a fleet of tablets or laptops that are assigned to the board members. We think it would.
Don't get your breath said.
Yeah, we think that there is a justifiable need as one of the 3 regulatory boards in Fairfax County. Everything is done digitally. There would be a way for everyone to be viewing plans on county-provided tablets or laptops. We do have an estimated cost. The cost I was given is $1,500 per unit, so that's a $16,500 ballpark expense request. I do know that is a large request, but I will say that we were advised to put it in to document the need for technology support. So that is something to think about. I think that we should revisit this discussion on Monday after you have time to think about it. I don't need a vote or anything now. I just need some sort of weigh in before it's put into the budget.
What else you could just show that, just the one issue?
There is a second one. The second one is linked back to the standing second meeting. It's been expressed to us that we should be accounting for 12 months of the recording secretary expense in the additional budget. So that'd be a recurring expense. That's an increase in your annual budget of $66,180 every fiscal year. And like I said, there is a documented need. We've had already 3 split meetings that could happen again.
I think that's the one that's obviously the most obvious. We're expending that money. So, but I think when Daniel, Denise, and Leanna brought up the technology support, I thought, I expected we would probably be in support of it, but that we need to temper our expectations with the fact that it might get shot down. But as Jason, you were saying,
You don't get what you don't ask for, so no harm in asking.
Yeah.
So the idea being, so we wouldn't have to be doing this. Every board member would have something that would have access to the plans that they could look at and have access to. I think everyone's in support of that idea.
Okay. So we need, okay, great. So the next thing on my list, Denise already touched on, but the timeline for the guideline rollout, we're aiming to have that in place before the end of the year and then start public meetings after New Year's. I think that's everything on my list because we already covered the discussion.
Okay. I know one other item that was brought up to my attention was that Mr. Burns sought approval for some expenditures of funds to attend a conference. Normally, it would be something that would be compensated through his employment with the Park Service, but now he's gratefully retired. And normally we provide $330 for members for training expenses, but John has submitted a proposal which I think is $1,000 to cover his travel and training or for a third, I think, or something to that effect. John, I don't know if you want to talk about it, but.
No, the Park Service said that they wanted to hire me back on a temporary basis in my old position until they can fill it. And the idea was that would be in March. But here it is in September, and it still hasn't gone through. And all the plans to go to this conference were in place, assuming that the Park Service would pick up those funds. And now it's obvious that I will not be hired in time for the Park Service to pick up that. So I paid for all of this out of my pocket to be able to go. And back in 2006, the ARB provided a substantial amount of money for me to attend the same conference when I was in Atlanta. And my name tag said Fairfax County Architectural Review Board. Everybody who knew me said, "Did you retire?" So for $1,000, you get your name out of a national professional organization. So Association for Preservation Technology.
And so I bring up normally it's a $330 allocation, but we actually have not, other than a few, I think it's even K, we may have provided
It's only one or two of you that actually have sought those funds.
Those funds have been unused.
Yes.
And you also have plenty of excess
Yes.
budget.
Ms. Murray is saying exactly what I'm trying to get to. Is we are sitting with excess budget. We also have not had other members use those training dollars at the end of the year. It is nigh upon us. And so I thought it would be reasonable if someone wanted to make a motion, we could approve.
So do you have to ask before you make the plans to go to do, or like?
No, you can.
A conference that happened like a month ago, could you submit that?
But can I submit for the NCAP summer workshops?
I know, Denise, I think we can retroactively pay you for training and conference attendances. It doesn't require pre-approval, is my understanding.
So this is, again, bylaws, expenditures, all expenditures shall be in furtherance of the purposes of the ARB and shall include costs of training and education of the members as approved by the ARB. No expenditure shall inure to the private interest of any member. No expenditure of the ARB funds shall be made without prior approval of the ARB. No expenditure of ARB funds shall be made without prior approval.
So we would have to approve the expenditure of our own funds, which I think would mean, because I'm not a lawyer, but I have them next to me, is we approve that we could use our funds for those purposes, but they would have to be requested.
I agree.
Oh, that's so nice to have that happen. So I think we could potentially approve those other activities.
I haven't watched I couldn't attend it live. And so I haven't watched the whole thing yet. So I'm not gonna ask for any money. If I ask for any money, it'll be after I watch all 5 hours or however long.
Because I'll point out, it's a little complicated to get money from the county anyways, there's a whole process you have to submit into. But once you do it, you can.
Oh, I've got whatever this IRS forms on file.
Yeah. So I think, Kate, potentially we could, if you want to work through that, we can definitely probably take that on too. But Mr. Zellman, do you
I'd like
want
to make a motion that the ARB approve an expenditure of $1,000 for Mr. Burns for training related to his service on the board.
All right, do we have a second? Second by Mr. Kalinsky. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? And one abstention for Mr. Burns. Motion carries. All right. That was your item that I knew I wanted to get to. Daniel, Denise, were there any other old business or correspondence announcements? We already covered nominating committee schedule, budget request. John, did you want to talk about your, Joe's got his light on, but I know, John, you had something to talk about.
Just going to say that, Daniel, thank you so much for sending the Morton master plan for the prison site. And you guys all saw that with your own copy on it. That has been it's approved, we're ready to roll. So we'll see some outpage about 5 years. But it's still good. I'm pretty happy. Go ahead.
No, I approached individually 2 members of the ARB, so I wouldn't constitute a meeting, about having an event in Western. And I'm a member of the board of DOCOMO DC. That's an international organization. DOCOMO is Documentation and Conservation of Modern Movement. And every year they have a tour day in October. And this year the theme internationally is urban renewal. And I floated the idea to the DOCOMO board that maybe we should look at suburban renewal, because that's what we're doing in Reston. Excuse me, that's what the county's doing. We're not doing it, the county's doing it in Reston. And came up with the idea of partnering with the Reston Museum to provide information on the history of Reston, and sent that, and then we had people who know about what's going on in Reston and the changes to the comp plans. We know the 2013 changes to the comp plan and the impact that they have had on particularly the commercial areas near the Wheelie and the other further west metro station. And we can talk about suburban renewal because it's affecting not just Reston. That's the one that's going to draw people in. Say, well, wait a minute, people are tearing down Reston. Well, yeah, they are. So that's cool. Now, I had another meeting last night with the DOCOMO DC board, And we decided that that is a great thing to do, but we can't do it in time for October.
Yeah.
So then the next, so it's probably going to be in the spring. We're aiming, so far we're thinking about the second, the, I think it's the 9th and the 14th or whatever. The
Rest
first
is
two
pretty in the
Sat-
spring, too.
First 2 Saturdays in April. I said, yeah, the azaleas again. So that's coming down the pike, and I'm hoping that we can make something of this.
Okay, and I thought that was a really, since we've already just done a survey in Reston, with all the stuff going on, like, and planning and Reston comp plan, it might, while there's a lot of things that might not be happy to show, there are also some great things to show.
Well, I think the thing of urban renewal was lessons in urban renewal. It's not, what's going on currently in urban renewal, but lessons of history of urban renewal.
But I think it'll be a fun thing to, hopefully we can make it happen.
So also, I don't know if anybody noticed this or not, but the Washington Business Journal publicized that the Capital One Lounge at Dulles Airport is now open. And that is in the base of the original control tower in a space that used to be a restaurant.
So it is in that space?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it has a cool angle out windows and an outdoor terrace where you can look over the mobile lounges and stuff like that.
Jordan was very upset, nobody responded to his comments. Jordan Tannenbaum was very perturbed, nobody responded to his comments.
Well, I thought it was okay.
I think we need to make a more field trip to it.
Well, it's in Loudoun County.
It's only Loudoun County until we capture it.
Well, actually, when we raised that point to the History Commission, somebody referred to it as world-class architecture, so therefore we should take an interest in it.
Yeah.
I would say, why is the History Commission commenting on this?
John is right, it is open. I've seen some pictures. It does look really amazing. So.
It looks pretty snazzy.
All right, any other new business?
I have an announcement that Bob Beach stepped down from the ARB, from the History Commission a few months ago. And the new appointment person came in last week. His name is Joe Namora.
Joe.
Namora, am I saying it right?
I'm not sure, yeah.
I think Joe Namora. He is, works for the architect of the Capitol. Jordan Tannenbaum. Jordan's on the advisory council. And he probably meddles and thinks he should be. Fairfax County.
That is the most accurate Jordan
Well, I went to those who didn't know who Jordan was.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'll get somebody to send you an email with his name, and it's actually the thing they sent us was pretty meaningless, but I found his LinkedIn profile very useful. He's also youngish. He used to be in his 30s.
All right. That was something that was brought up during the equity meeting, that we need to try to continue to encourage young folks to take part in our county's boards, authorities, and commissions. And I realized when that was being said of me, I was no longer in that group.
We have one more bonus for him. He is apparently Asian. Yes.
Well, I'm very happy to hear that one of our potential replacements for Michelle is a woman, because I like the fact that our board has a diversity of men and women on it. So we can keep that going, I think, or at least putting in one room. All right, well, if there's no other business, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
All right, motion adjourned is always in order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, yep, on Monday.
Seriously, John.
Too hard.
These guys are listening.
No, you were perfectly, you got right too. You said it in a way that actually I didn't have more weight to it. I was thinking, like, wait a minute, that's not